We are on the island of Kauai today for a very special episode of Grounded Wellness with Bethany Hamilton. There are few people in the world whose presence feels like a living embodiment of strength, grace, and deep-rooted faith. And Bethany is one of them. Bethany is a professional surfer, author, speaker, wife, and mom of 4. In this conversation, Bethany opens up about what it means to truly live well, physically, mentally, and spiritually. From her grounding daily practices to the perspectives that carry her through life's waves, this episode is a heartfelt dive into resilience, intuition, and holistic wellness from one of the most inspiring voices of our time. Whether you've followed Bethany's journey since Soul Surfer, or you're just discovering her depth beyond the headlines, this conversation will help you reconnect to your own strength. Let's dig in. Bethany, thank you so much for being here today. We've been in touch for a while now. We met for the first time a little over 2 years ago in Kauai, and you were pregnant with your daughter, your youngest, Alea, and I had my youngest, Otto, with me. I remember he was like in the carrier and we got acai bowls. So I've been following along with you for so long. And as I was getting ready for this recording, I was researching you even more. And I found out that we have a lot of really interesting things in common. Do you want to hear some of them?
Yes.
Okay. So the obvious
I'm
one,
on my toes now.
I know, I can't wait. The obvious one is we have the same name.
Yes.
Okay. We're both blonde. That was on my list, but another obvious one. We're both really into health. We have the same favorite Bible verse. I think this is your favorite verse, John 16:30.
Yes.
Yeah. That was like on my Facebook profile, like my bio, like all throughout college. We're similar ages. I'm 36. I think you're 35. We both dated our husbands 9 months before getting engaged. Isn't that good?
Yeah.
And I think I heard you say that your husband has a teaching degree.
Yes.
Same fit as mine.
That is wild. Okay, we have a lot of similarities here.
And you've described him as like a ball guy before he moved here. What was his sport?
He did mostly football, but I think he dabbled in a few different sports as well.
Okay. My
And
husband
then he
was
did
basketball.
track and stuff. And yeah.
Okay. So not quite the same sports, but that's so funny. I just loved that. Most of our audience is probably very familiar with your story.
Yes.
When you were 13 years old, you were attacked by a 14-foot tiger shark. You lost your arm in the attack. And then 3.5 weeks later, you got back into the ocean and started surfing again. So I'm sure a part of you was terrified to go back into the water, but to what extent were you afraid, and how did you overcome that fear?
Yes. So, oh my gosh, I would say I am far from fearless, though a lot of people describe me as fearless. And when my whole life kind of came to a halt in that season, my biggest fear was not of sharks at that point, but of losing surfing. So I didn't know anyone who surfed with one arm. I didn't know, I didn't even know anyone who had limb difference, let alone like surfed. And so for me, I felt very fearful of losing my greatest passion in life. At that time, like I was winning every surf competition I entered up just about for my age group, and I was like the one to beat. And you can tell that I was heading on a trajectory for a professional surfing career,
and not just a professional surfing career, but becoming
maybe
the best
one
in the
of the
world.
best. And so, yeah, as soon as I got a hint of inspiration that I could try to surf with one arm, I was dead set on trying. And of course there was fear of sharks, but I think my fear of losing surfing was greater than my fear of sharks. And I think for anyone who knows the ocean, yeah, sharks come close to the beach sometimes, but for the most part, like where I lost my arm was really far out to sea and kind of like more of an eerie location, so to say. And so when I first went surfing, I went where it was very shallow, like you could stand up and just like 1.5 feet deep. And then over time, I slowly, first of all, I figured out how to surf with one arm. And then from there was no turning back. And then over time, I slowly overcame that fear of sharks once I started surfing all the normal breaks. And yeah, I think for me, it truly was just facing my fears and not letting that fear hold me back. And, I definitely have a more tenacious attitude, or like I'm a go-getter in life. And that helped me. But I also feel like God gave me this passion for a reason and this gift and talent. And so it was just God working in and through my life. And lo and behold, I continued surfing and kind of continued on a very similar trajectory, maybe not quite the same, but I'd say it became a more beautiful life than I could have painted.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on something really interesting with fear. It's like a lot of us have fears, but I think it's important to think like, what is the cost if I don't do this?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily about just doing it and overcoming it, period. And it's like thinking about like, what do I lose if I choose to not, push myself a little bit?
Yeah.
Very soon after all of this, you were then launched into the public eye. You became instantly famous. You were traveling around the world, speaking and talking to people and encouraging people. What was that like for you?
Yeah. So oddly enough, like my parents decided to like let me go and make a public name for myself at 13. And I don't know if they fully knew what they were doing. We lived a very simple life, and my parents worked like multiple jobs, and we lived here out in Hawaii where the cost of living is very high, and we were just like kind of barely scraping by throughout most of my childhood. And so when they kind of sent me out, they came with me, of course, but like...
Was it you who were like, I really want to do this? Or were they like, this would be really cool, you should try it?
I would say it was a mix. So what's crazy is they interviewed me in the hospital, and I was like, well, maybe God will be able to use my story to encourage others. Mm-hmm. And that was like 13-year-old Bethany. Nobody said that to me before I said that. Like, it wasn't something my parents like ingrained in my mind. Yeah. It was just something that came out at me. And so I think I always had that heart. And I see how my mom raised me too. For example, on Christmas, even with our low income, for one gift, we would go and buy like a well for a community who didn't have clean water, or we'd buy like some goats to support a community who needed more food. So like my mom was very thinking outside of our family, like loving our neighbor, even if we didn't know them, sort of thing. And so I think I grew up in a household of like not always thinking about ourselves and thinking of others and the need in the world. And so then when I lost my arm, this was before social media was super viral. Nowadays, people can become known overnight through a viral social media video. But I would say it's very different in the sense that oftentimes they're also forgotten very quickly too. But my story went truly viral, like household name all over the world, like little Bethany gets back, especially once I started surfing again.
Yeah.
And so I started surfing again, and then I went triple viral. And then lo and behold, I went on to write my book, and little 14-year-old Bethany was like, let's write this book so I never have to tell my story again. But I didn't understand the whole concept of like, you got to go on a book tour and then you tell your story over again and again and again so you can promote your book.
Yeah.
And so over time, and then I started motivational speaking. So I've been making this joke, like, I do the two scariest things in the world. I surf with sharks and do motivational speaking. Public speaking.
Literally, yeah. Everyone's greatest fears.
A lot of people like really don't want nothing to do with all of that.
But you had a purpose that was greater than your fear.
Right. And so I think with speaking, I knew that I could help people, even though I started off really bad at it. And over time, I got better and better at it. Like, imagine a little 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old Bethany. Didn't always have much to say, so you really had to dig it out of me. But there's also like really fun moments along the way where I was very like honest and real, and I think that's kind of hard to come by nowadays. And so people just loved that, and yeah, it's just been such an amazing journey, and I'm so grateful for even all the hardship and seeing all the good that's come out of it and still having such a beautiful life. And now I'm a mom of 4 and it's just such a joy. And now I'm surfing with my children, and
So fun.
I'm not a super bribing parent, but I do bribe my children to surf because I know it's like a hard one to overcome the hurdle of like fear of waves and getting pounded.
What do you bribe them with?
Well, lately it's like gummy bears or $1 for my 4-year-old. So the other day he's like, I can have $1? His face lit up. So he surfed and challenged himself and he had fun.
I feel like bribery gets such a bad rap, and obviously it can be overdone and done in a way that isn't healthy, but also like all of us incentivize our children in different ways.
Yeah,
and
I mean, a lot of
it's
ways,
not
like I would
always
not
negative.
show up for many things in life if I didn't have a reason beyond, you know.
That's how it works in the real world.
Yeah, but I definitely try not to use it too much. But I
you
think
can't
with
overdo it.
surfing, it definitely helps because surfing has like there's this hurdle you have to overcome. And like, for example, my 10-year-old, he's a total shredder now. And I fully bribed him. And I asked him the other day, I was like, are you glad mama bribed you when you were little? He's like, yeah, thanks, mom.
Yeah, I mean, it can be an effective parenting strategy when used correctly.
Yeah, and he had a really, like, he didn't like getting splashed in the face. Like, it felt, you know, he didn't, like, it took him a while to get used to getting, like, just splashed.
Yeah.
But he was also, like, a little natural, and lo and behold, he became a great little surfer. And I love that he gets to enjoy surfing with me, but he also gets to just enjoy the ocean. I think it's such a special place for children to spend time in. And
For sure.
yeah.
How did that whole experience, starting with the shark attack and then, you know, being this public figure known worldwide, how did all of that shape you into the person, the mom, the wife that you are today?
I would say what's a blessing is I wouldn't say all that shaped me. I would say more surfing and my faith in God shaped me more than anything. And then on top of that, my family. And I've always been very grounded in like my faith. And, you know, for me, going in the public eye was really uncomfortable. So coming home and jumping in the ocean was like my regulator.
Yeah.
Like it was my place of freedom and my place to just be me. And then my faith in God really grounded me in a lot of ways. Whereas like a lot of the other stuff was uncomfortable and I didn't really enjoy it, but I knew there was a purpose, especially in helping others. And so as I wrote my book and then we made the movie Soul Surfer and then eventually my documentary Unstoppable, it all just kind of came into place. And yeah, it was just so beautiful to be able to like encourage people because I think all of us face hardship and continually throughout life and we need that hint of hope. And I have had my hint of hope along the way. And so.
Yeah, it's obvious like how much people cling to your story. Like people are in desperate need of that encouragement. And I think you're just this living example of that. And it resonates with so many people. I want to talk about your wellness journey a little bit.
Yes.
And motherhood, because those things seem to be very intertwined for you. But tell us about how your wellness journey started. It was after becoming a mom, is that correct?
Kind of. So I started to actually get into health in my teenage years. So it started off really cute. We didn't have social media. We were the no hydrogenated oil club girls.
You guys were way ahead of the times.
Ahead of our times.
Yeah.
But then as an athlete, I wanted to perform well. So I was competing as a professional surfer. And I also didn't get my period for most of my teen years. And so lo and behold, my parents won an auction item to get a live blood analysis from a local integrative health doctor. And they didn't want it, so they gave it to me.
Wow.
And I took that and I ran with it. And it was very eye-opening to just see my blood and have it explained out to me. And so that was the very start of my health journey.
Do you still do those?
I haven't done one in years.
I
should
one
go do
a couple
that.
years ago. It was
actually.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was very eye-opening and motivating. And then from there, I really took an interest in just educating myself. So I read a lot of books along the way. But then fast forward to motherhood, After I had my second, it was also in the season where I was filming my documentary. So I was super duper active. I was also competing and I was pushing myself super hard, but to the point where I wasn't sleeping well. So I was like waking up at 3 a.m, which I realized in hindsight, I wasn't getting enough calories. I didn't have an eating disorder, but I simply wasn't eating enough, which I think a lot of people don't eat enough in life.
Especially busy moms.
Yeah, especially busy moms. So I was just running super hard. I was also like, I would have coffee before I have breakfast. And then I was even getting into like intermittent fasting, which I kind of cringe on all this now. And I know some people like that, but for me, it was super detrimental. And if I'm going to be really honest, what really was my wake up was me like snapping at my children. So I was super easily agitated. And I think it was because I was running off cortisol and my hormones were kind of getting disrupted. And I just wasn't in a good place. Or for example, there's a few moments in my kitchen where I was always dropping things. Like my body was kind of like shaky almost, but it wasn't like super noticeable, but I would just drop stuff a lot and then it would break and shatter. And
nothing is more frustrating than that.
Oh my gosh. As a mom, I was like, you
I was just kind of
like,
hands up.
I was like ball crying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, is this normal? And then one day I was like, I don't think it's normal to be ball crying because I dropped something on the ground and it like made a mess. Like, I don't think that's normal. And so I just kind of went down a podcast bunny trail. My brother was also having some health issues. And so he was studying stuff and we would ping stuff back and forth. And I ended up kind of getting into the pro-metabolic, like mineral dense diet.
What does that look like?
So basically what it looks like is eating breakfast within 30 minutes of waking. And in that breakfast is high protein, like 3 or 4 eggs and fruit or, some potatoes or something like that. And then maintaining a similar meal plan throughout the day and making sure I was getting, for me, like close to 4,000 calories. So I probably went from eating like 2,000 calories to doubling my calories.
Wow. It's a big increase.
Yeah. And then never eating coffee on an empty stomach, eating things like organ meats. Like I would eat random things like bone broth and bee pollen and just like still eat all the food groups, Mm-hmm. I also started eating a lot less nuts and seeds, which I tended to eat a lot of that before for some reason. I don't know why, but like maybe more than your average human eats nuts and seeds. Like I just always
started eating well, I did the same thing. When you do that in excess, at least for me, like it didn't sit well in my gut and just, it wasn't the right.
And then I was also dairy-free, so I started incorporating dairy, mostly raw dairy, raw cheese, raw milk. My brother's a dairy farmer, so I do have access to fresh raw milk. And I felt such a big shift over the next 3 years. Like I went from pretty struggling to thriving. Like I have amazing energy. I sleep way better. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, okay, what did I eat? Like, what's going on here? It's very rare that I wake up in the middle of the night aside from having to nurse my children. So, being a professional athlete, pushing it really hard, working a lot, high stress, high pressure, wanting to get my body back, so to say, because I was in the public eye. But it's really different too when you're not only in the public eye, but I literally live in a swimsuit. And so, just after having a baby, working really hard, and then I was filming my documentary, so I'm on camera all the time. So there was just a lot there to unpack. And basically these diet shifts that I made such a big difference to the point where nobody's convincing me otherwise because I feel amazing. I'm way more mentally, emotionally stable. And, I'm not snapping at my children, which is absolutely devastating and super hard. And
I love your honesty in mentioning that because I think all of us can relate to that. It's happened to all of us. And I think it's really helpful for any moms listening to hear there are things that you can do to support your body so that you're in better mental headspace. So when the frustration or the triggers do come, you can handle it in a better way.
Yeah, and I think all of us struggle with triggers. It's not like I'm perfect now, but I'm definitely not where I was. Like, you know,
You've
like
set your body up for success.
Like, the child would spill the glass of milk, but it was like a $5 glass of raw milk. So you're like, stop spilling the milk, you know, like truly crying over spilled milk.
I know, that phrase exists for a reason. That's happened multiple times in our household also.
It's one thing if it's like pasteurized and like the cheap, affordable milk.
Oh my gosh.
But like, we're talking like, they're spilling raw milk out here in Hawaii.
It hurts in your soul.
I would literally like be spreading it on my skin because they would like spill it all over. I'm like, okay, we're doing a facial, mid-morning facial here.
Raw milk facials, everyone.
But yeah, I really can empathize with moms and just like the pressures and the workloads and like the undernourishment and drinking coffee excessively and like really not caring for ourselves in the way that we need, because culturally, like a lot of that has been promoted. And so when I share stuff online, on social media, it's because I'm coming from a place of like, I've trialed by error. I've made a lot of mistakes. I dragged my husband into intermittent fasting. The poor guy was like shriveling up alongside of me. Like, I need food, but we're not eating till 10 a.m., hun. Like, we just kind of went down some weird bunny holes. And even some of that was recommended by integrative health doctors. And I don't believe in that now. And I think the body thrives when you're not running on cortisol and you're supporting your hormones to thrive by eating well, like not doing so much in the day that you're super stressed out. You know, we're getting in nature, we're getting some sunshine, we're like working on our relationships, we're checking in with God, and we're also like managing the lighting in our home. Like, so I really do look at
lighting,
like,
that's a big one.
Health as a full spectrum of like, there's a lot to unpack. And once you start unpacking it, like there's something new to continually learn. And I think that's something I've learned, is just being teachable and not being so closed-minded that, you know, we're missing out on health and growth and healing. And
I think different things sometimes work for different people. Like what you described, how you eat, sounds very similar to what I do now. I did used to do a lot of intermittent fasting, and I still do it sometimes, because sometimes I just feel like my body needs a cleanup. Like, let's activate some autophagy, let's clear my head. Like, it feels good to me, but you can definitely overdo it. And now I do it at, you know, the appropriate times of the month and less stressful times in my schedule and whatnot. So there's a lot of intricacies.
That's really interesting too, because I've noticed whenever I get sick, for example, like you naturally fast. Yeah. But I swear I always look amazing after I get sick. I'm like, whoa, why am I looking so good here? Yeah. Like, so I think like listening to the body and checking in. But I do think like some things have just been normalized to an extreme. And I like that your podcast is called Grounded Wellness. Like, I just think grounding our wellness is so important beyond going out in nature and like stepping on the grass, but like grounding ourselves, like checking in with like, does this make sense? Am I thriving? Yeah. Is this actually working? And not just doing something because it's popular or celebrated, like, or has been promoted, you know, as good. I think just like getting back to the basics is so important. And
I agree.
I'm just so grateful. Like, I literally went from like that crying mom because I dropped something and kind of snapping at my children to like way more calm, way more level-headed, like, you know, able to like handle the spilled milk. Yeah. And yeah, I feel like it's a night and day difference for me. And I feel just so grateful for the journey, because I think I can also like share it with other people and help other moms out there.
For sure. I think a lot of moms get so caught up with caring for their kids and just their to-do lists and everything around the house that oftentimes they just kind of forget to care for themselves. But we think about it in this way. We have this thing that we say like self-health. So like, self-care, I feel like, has gone
too extreme.
Yeah. And to us, like at Primarily Pure, self-health means taking care of yourself and prioritizing your personal wellness so that you can better show up for the people around you and pour into their lives and fulfill the purpose that you were called to do on this earth. And so I like thinking about it that way. It's like, it can be selfish, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
It can actually be a really selfless thing. Was wellness a priority in your family growing up?
No, I wouldn't say health was much of a priority. And actually that's something that, like, entering into motherhood, like, I felt like my mom lost her health in motherhood, like, to the end of, like, she didn't care for her health as much as she should have, and she kind of slowly quit surfing. Like, I wish my mom was surfing with me, not like taking me to surf and sitting on the beach. And so when I entered into motherhood, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give myself the time and space to, like, take care of myself after I have a baby so that I can go surf with my children, which is what I do. I surf with my children, and so I'm able to enjoy them that much more. And while my whole family, like, does appreciate, like, certain elements of health, and, you know, when we get together for a family dinner, it is pretty healthy. I think it's just been a, like, kind of a rough journey as well, in the health aspect for a lot of my family members. And so, yeah, I think, you know, sometimes I'm like, oh, I need to kind of mellow out, but you know, as a mom, there's also the whole element of, like, caring for your children's health and being ahead on that. And I've seen in my children, they're thriving in life in a lot of ways. And I know it's because of what we're giving them nutrition-wise. We take care of our health. They know a lot about health, but also, like, there's some elements, like, my son is mouth breathing, and I'm trying to, like, problem solve that. And it is kind of a big challenge.
That's a big one.
And his nervous system is way more short. Like, he kind of reminds me of when I was more short nervous system mom. Like, I was struggling because my nervous system was, like, stressed out to the max. And so I see, like, he hasn't slept well for years. And so we're kind of on this bunny trail of, like, figuring out his breathing and, like, what do we do to help him develop healthy breathing as he grows up. And so there's just so much to unpack and learn. And, like, that's another thing I didn't even mention. Like, breathing well is so important. Like, I'm a mouth breather too. So I tape my mouth at night.
Yeah, me too. Makes a big difference.
It seems like, you know, my bedtime routine seems kind of extreme, but
oh my gosh,
literally
Bethany,
sleeping is important.
When
like,
I
breathing.
lost my bag, okay, so I was telling Bethany,
I don't have all my sleep gear.
I flew in yesterday and my luggage didn't arrive, and they had no idea where it was. It finally arrived today, thank God. But last night, okay, everything was in there, my clothes for today.
You should have texted me. I would have brought you a little sleeping gear.
No, the thing I was the most sad about was all my sleep stuff was in my bag. So, like, I really needed to sleep well last night. I didn't really. It wasn't the worst, but I have so many sleep things, and I'm like, it may be, like, some people may see it as excessive, but I'm like, there are so many things in our worlds that are working against us. Like, why not implement these little tweaks that make a big difference and make you feel better?
Yeah, no,
Like
I can
mouth tape.
relate to that so much. So we travel a lot, and I know a lot of people couldn't handle the sort of travel we do. We bring all our children. We're on the road like 3 to 4 months a year.
Wow.
And so that's why I invest so much into my health, so I can keep up with this rigorous travel schedule.
Yeah.
I actually travel with, like, sleep gear in my purse now in case our bags ever get lost.
I'm doing
so
that.
I have, like, this little bag. It has my vagus nerve stimulator, mouth tape,
Wait, what's a vagus
earplugs.
nerve stimulator?
So this is something I just got, and it's like for when you're kind of having, like, your blood rushing, you know, as a mom, you're like,
feeling that last night, trying to sleep and being
And
so upset that I didn't have my sleep stuff.
So I got an ad on Instagram, but it's like you put it on your vagus nerve and it kind of stimulates. So you wouldn't feel it on certain parts of your body except for nerves. And so you put it over your vagus nerve and it can help you calm down. And I've been using it now for like a year, and I'm super grateful for it. Like,
feel like it
anytime
helps.
I'm feeling like uptight as a mom, I'll do that. And
How long do you have to do it for?
it's just a couple minutes. So it's not like a big commitment. So I just have it in my purse all the time. And anytime I feel that like kind of, getting uptight feeling, I'll do that.
I kind of want to hear your whole sleep routine now. Can you walk us through it?
For me, my sleep routine is actually like spending like an hour and a half getting our children to sleep.
Yeah.
Like I've set an alarm on my phone at like 7:45, get the children to sleep. Half of the time we're just finishing dinner. And then my husband's reading to the older children, and then I'll go and nurse my little one. Hopefully she'll go down. Half of the time she doesn't, so she ends up staying up late. And then I'll snuggle my 4-year-old to sleep, and he really thrives on mom snuggles, if the very least dad snuggles. And then either my husband bounces my baby to sleep, our baby to sleep, or we take her in the stroller and she'll conk out in the stroller and then we transfer her. But sometime in that window, we turn the lights down. Like we have our house now all lit with orange lighting or red lighting. So everyone's supported to have their circadian rhythms more attuned to nature. And then I do just like clean my face, put moisturizer on, but not too much around my mouth because I got to put the mouth tape on. So since we've been going down the bunny trail of my 7-year-old not breathing well, we took them to a special dentist in Oahu who specializes in airway dentistry. Yeah. And I think my husband and I both have airway issues as well. So now I got this little thing I stick up my nose, and it opens your nostrils. It is night and day. Like,
okay, I need to know about this.
My nose is wider, and now I feel like this flood of air coming. So I put the nose thing in, put the mouth tape on, earplugs, eye blankie. After we read a little bit, and the babies are all sleeping, talk to hubby, and then we're out. And I usually fall asleep within 10 minutes. So
it sounds identical to my sleep routine.
I went from having to sometimes it would take me an hour to fall asleep. I try not to look at my phone. If I am looking at my phone after I put the children to sleep, I have red blue light blockers on.
Do you do the red light setting on your phone where you can make the screen all red?
Oh, no. Is it easy enough to make it super simple?
Yeah, you program it so you click the side 3 times and then it goes to red mode. I'll send you a blog post about it, but it's easy.
Oh my gosh. I haven't done that.
I need to know about these nostril things because add this to the list of similarities, but I have like airway. I'm realizing that I have a small airway also.
Yeah.
And I started using, for a little while, Breathe Right strips to open the nostrils.
You put it on top,
but then the adhesive is so intense.
I got one adhesive one, and I felt like I was ripping my skin off.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
It was intense. So
I'm like, I love the feeling of it, but if yours doesn't have that and it still gives that same effect, I would love to know.
I guess they were designed for people who snore. So if you snore, it's likely you have airway issues. So you put it in your nose, and it kind of just spreads your nose apart. It's not uncomfortable. It's totally doesn't bug me at all. I don't know the name of it.
That's fine.
We'll send you a picture. Yeah, I'll send you a picture of whatever it is. But my 7-year-old, he loves putting it in. He wants it because he feels the difference. And even all our children are getting mouth tape on as well because they all are opening their mouth. We've been on this rigorous trying to retrain them to hold their tongue on the top of their mouth and close their mouth all throughout the day. And it's honestly pretty uphill battle. I don't think, it's pretty hard to get your children to close their mouth if they're accustomed to leaving their mouth open all day. But the chances are that's going to become such a big issue in their adult life. And it already is an issue now. It's known that you'll have more cavities if your mouth is open and your mouth breathing.
Affects the bacteria in your gut. Having proper oxygenation makes the gut situation so much better.
So it's so frustrating with health because on one hand, I want to be like, it's simple. But I do feel like we're in a time where there is just more issues because of the way our diet and how a lot of things are just not as natural as they used to be. And so as a very health-conscious family, there's a lot to unpack. And I keep talking about this because I kind of take the burden on as mom. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have way more empathy on my 7-year-old. Like, he's a little more short-tempered. He gets more impatient with like noises and lights and stuff like that. And it's truly because of like his nervous system is just not as regulated and calm. And so for him, he's a little more up and down, even though he's such a joy and he's such a sweet kid. But
well, I think just having that knowledge and understanding is probably helpful. Like even if you're, just starting in the process.
Oh my gosh, it's like, totally helped us be more patient with him. Just understanding like, oh my gosh, breathing is such a key component to health. You can be, doing a lot of good things for your health, but if you're not breathing well, like it's literally one of the key pillars, I think, to good health. And so we're slowly unpacking all the things.
I've always thought that surfers have got to be the most healthy athletes out of any sport because you guys are
in nature
outdoors. You're grounded when you're surfing, I believe, because the water, all the minerals in the water are conductive with the earth.
Right.
You're getting sunshine, fresh air, like minerals in the water. I mean, do you feel like that among like this community of surfers that like, are they generally pretty healthy people? I want someone to study this.
Yeah.
But I just feel like surfers have to be super healthy.
No, I think surfers have a lot going for them. And just the fact that we're spending time in nature and getting sunshine and, grounding in the ocean. I feel like that's why I mentioned when I was a little girl, like coming back to the ocean and surfing, like after being in the city and having people interview me and being in front of a camera, like it was a lot on me. And so coming back, surfing was such like a grounding place for me to go and just be myself and kind of regulate, But I think a lot of surfers naturally have way more health than much of the population because we're slowing down too and we're getting in nature and it's such a place to be present. You're not bringing your phone with. There's not a bunch of distractions. And I think
their circadian rhythms are probably so on point because a lot of times you guys are out there early in the morning at sunrise. Like, makes me want to start surfing.
Yeah, whenever we're running hard, getting in the beach and surfing a lot, I feel like my whole family, we're all just conking out so fast. I'm like, yes, this is how it's supposed to be. We should be going to bed tired.
Yeah. As someone who's in the sun a lot, what does your relationship with the sun look like?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I get kind of sun thrashed, I'll be honest. But I try to make my sun hours between, like getting out of the sun around 11 a.m., if not covering up from 11 to 2:30 or 3. But as a mom, sometimes my window to go surf is midday. So
during that time,
I just put like cover up with a long sleeve rash guard and sometimes I'll even surf in a hat or just put a really thick coat of sunscreen on. So I mean, I don't think I'm like have all the answers there and like my skin's kind of thrashed from the sun, but
it doesn't look like it. It looks great.
I don't know, like sometimes it just kind of depends on the day and time, but I've been embracing the sun more and just like, I feel like for me, it's been a place of healing to just get in nature and get some sunshine on and slow down and be present. And so whether I'm surfing or at the beach with my children, I feel like there's more pros than cons. But I will say, like, I was a part of a documentary recently, Fed a Lie, and it was all about the seed oil movement in our food industry. And there's a lot to unpack there. I highly recommend watching that film because I think a lot of people are doubters, but I started cutting out seed oils like 5 years ago now. And we don't really bring it in our house. And, we'll still eat out sometimes, but we don't eat out much. And we eat a lot less nuts and seeds than we used to. And I feel like I'm way more resilient to the sun than I was, say, like 10 years ago when I was consuming a lot of that. Like, I would just kind of have that fried red look, whereas now I still will get sunburnt, but it's not as bad. Like, it's more of a, like, natural sunburn, I would say, that midday sun.
Yeah, we've noticed that in our family, too. We've been avoiding seed oils for probably about a decade, but have gotten way more serious about it in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I do feel like it's made a difference with burning much less. What role has your faith played in your wellness journey?
Oh my goodness. I feel like it's the grounder of all grounders for all the ups and downs and challenges. And actually, like before we started recording, I like had a little started crying because I was like thinking of all the stressful things in my life. And you know, I as much as I love getting in nature and the ocean, like the most surest thing I feel like in my life is knowing that God, His grace is sufficient for me and everyone I share life with. And that's been like my greatest grounder through all the ups and downs and the trials. And even 13-year-old Bethany, like she had such a resiliency that I can only attribute to God. And yeah, fast forward now and like the ups and downs of marriage and motherhood and business and all the many challenges and just like family dynamics. And there's just been a lot in my life that's been extremely hard. Like I would say like the last 4 years has been like the hardest season in my life, and on so many different levels too, that I am just grateful for my faith, and I look to God to be the author and finisher of all the hard things and all the ups and downs, and most certainly my faith, and to kind of be able to forgive myself at the end of the day when things don't go perfect, or be able to forgive my husband for the wrongs he does to me, or whoever we may share life with when things don't go right, being able to carry ourselves in a way that's grounded in what God calls. And He calls, first of all, He promises His grace and forgiveness on our life. And like, I think much of the world is so angry and bitter and resentful for one thing or another, and that can be so disruptive on our heart and mind and overall health. And while I don't want it to be for my health, I do think it contributes to good health, because I'm able to like let go of like the bad things and like the frustrating things or the mistakes I might make along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. We have a lot of moms in our audience, and I know there are probably some moms listening who maybe they want their family to live a healthier lifestyle, but they either don't know where to start, or maybe they're going through financial struggles and feel like it's unattainable. What would you say to encourage anyone in that position?
Oh my goodness. Yes. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I recently launched a podcast as well. And I've actually been trying to find someone to help me do an episode on like living healthy on a budget, because, you know, for my family growing up, like a lot of times we did eat really convenient food, and we ate a lot of like Taco Bell and Burger King growing up. And it really played a toll on my mom's health, and I would say everyone's health, but even more so on my mom's health, to the point where she had a lot of thyroid issues. And I remember when I was like a young or older child, but young teenager, like she would just be laying in bed, and I would go and like spend time with her in her bed because she had health issues from all the like poor lifestyle choices. And it kind of like put a fire under my butt to like really take care of myself. And so I think there is so much you can do that doesn't cost a lot of money. Like literally there's so much you can do. And I think starting with like focusing on your connection with your family. So putting away the distractions and the noises, and trying to unravel like any disconnects that may be happening between you and your children or you and your husband. I think like that is the number one thing I would suggest for health.
Being connected as a family.
Yeah. So turning off the TV, putting away the devices, getting in nature and spending time together, and like really building your relationships as a family, and trying to unravel any challenges that may be happening that need focus, and not ignoring, you know, some of the things that may be kind of like, oh, this seems off, but I can't quite pinpoint why. Like keep trying to figure out why.
Yeah, I think God gave us that intuition for a reason as moms.
Right.
And it's important to tune into that.
Right. And like I've just found with my 3-year-old, or my now 4-year-old, like he was such a hothead for like a while, and I think that's just like the season of barbaricness, where like from 2 to 4 about they're kind of barbaric and they just like cannot hold it together. So you kind of have to hold it together for them. And once I just like figured that out, like instead of being like, hey, go lay down in your room for like you're being naughty, like go lay down in your room. Not that I tell him he's being naughty, but in my head I might be thinking it. But now I'll like grab him, hug him, and sit on the rocking chair, and literally it'll be resolved in 2 minutes, and then we move on with our day. And so like simple shifts of like, is this the best method for this child? Like really trying to key in on their needs, and sometimes they truly need that connection. And so that's been such a big shift. Like I literally saw my three-year-old go from like always being kind of crazy and like screaming and like kind of like having a lot of meltdowns, and then I would just like, you know, snuggle him, look him in the eye, or trying to change the subject if he's like kind of getting riled up. And it's been so cool to see the change in him, and it's been like made our house a lot more peaceful. Granted, he is getting older, so maybe he's kind of growing out of that barbaric season.
I think that's so key though, like trying to find ways to connect through the discipline, through the correction.
Right.
Like that's been huge with my kids too. Like not that there's not a time where you can like send your kid to a room for a timeout, but like, I don't know, if you can maybe go on a walk with them, or just creating an opportunity to connect with them and then talk them through it, versus just kind of like, okay, punishment, it's done, let's move on.
Or like I've found with my older boys, I'm like, they know right and wrong. They know when they're up to no good. And so if I feel really heated at them and I'm like wanting to say things that I shouldn't say or raise my voice in a way that I don't want to, that's when I actually really appreciate timeout, because I would rather get space from them than damage them with my words or tone or like anger. And then we work through it later on.
Yeah.
So I feel like there are times and places for certain methods, and we are pretty like more on the lines of respectful, peaceful, but we also have like more of a balance, I would say. And sometimes like, yeah, we just have different approaches per the situation. And
For sure, the age matters, the kid matters. Like there's a lot to consider with discipline. You homeschool your kids. We do as well. My kids are part of a homeschool pod. Why did you guys make the decision to homeschool?
Well, I homeschooled from 6th grade on. So I went to a public elementary school, and then I homeschooled because I was becoming quite the little athlete. And where we live, it was a 40-minute drive to the school. So it was like an hour and a half driving every day. Plus it was a very average school, and we couldn't afford a private school. So lo and behold, I started homeschooling, and I just loved that. I feel like I developed a lot of good things by doing homeschooling. And granted, I started traveling internationally pretty young. And so I also learned a lot through travel and through work ethic in my sport of surfing and the various things that I did. And I just knew that was something I always wanted to give my children. But also I'm still doing motivational speaking, and we still travel a lot. So we really can't keep up with a normal school calendar. And we're not willing to like devote our calendar to the school calendar. And so it's been super amazing. I love having my children close. We have great relationships, so I love being with them all day. Like I'm not like, granted, my husband and I both work from home, and he helps kind of teamwork. You know, we have our podcast, I do motivational speaking, and he's kind of helping running the show. So we're kind of bouncing in and out all day long, and you know, we can touch base, but then I'll go and like, for example, yesterday I took my children and my nephews to go skate the skate park, and it's a lot more than just skateboarding to me. It's like putting in time to develop a skill, and I hire a coach like once or twice a month, and I love the coach because he teaches in a different way than I do. So they're having this opportunity to learn from someone who I think is really respectable. And yeah, I just see them growing in different ways in the life that we're living. And, you know, I think a lot of people are like, I can't afford it. But half of my friends are living on a single income, and they're all homeschooling their children. And I know it looks different for everyone, but I feel like where there's a will, there's a way, and you can learn to budget. You know, I know that there's different views around this, but it's just really interesting to see, like, all my friends are, you know, we live in the most expensive place in the world, Kauai, and they're all living on a single income. Their husbands are working super hard and they're making big sacrifices to live the life that they want to live and raise their children in the way that they want to raise them. So yeah, I just have a lot of thoughts there, but I love being able to, I think like adults should raise children and not children raising children. So that's one reason why we homeschool. We want faith to be the foundation of our education too. So, you know, we're able to have a slower morning and we have like a Bible study every morning. And I feel like that would be really hard to do if we were, you know, trying to hustle out the door to school and even coming home from school.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, what does an average day look like for you guys?
Our days are like kind of all over the place, but yeah, a lot of time at home. My children see my husband and I working too. They're kind of integrated into it. So I think that's really cool. Like they get to kind of be a part of it. We try to explain a lot. Like my 10-year-old now, he just turned 10. He is seeing the ins and outs of the way we do things. And I think that's like priceless. And I'm hoping once he turns 13, he is an assistant to my husband.
Wow.
So that's the sort of vision I have. Like my husband will be raising our boys in particular as they go from 13 to adult.
Very cool.
Yeah, so there's just two, like I want them to be healthy. I want them to have character. A lot of these things that they won't be taught in school, I want them to understand finances, taxes, and
yeah.
I feel like a lot of schooling is a waste of time. And so trying to take our time and make the most of it in a shorter increment. So a lot of our school days are very short, like less than 2 hours. And then we're getting in nature. Also, we have a unique setup where my parents live on property. They live in our guest house. So my boys are often with their grandma. She's educating them in her own unique way, or they're helping serve her. And so they have like a lot of exposure to different people, like from young to old. They're very hands-on with my daughter. And they can converse with any age very well. And I think that is really beautiful. And so that's the many reasons we're homeschooling.
I love that.
There's so many more, but yeah, I also like with the way cell phones are being used for children now, you know, young boys are being exposed to pornography very young. And I don't think that I want my children around boys who are exposed to pornography because they are maturing and talking about things they shouldn't be at such young ages. And so that is in the school system, whether you want to face that or not. And so that's a major reason too why we're keeping our boys home, just to keep them away from that as long as possible.
And it's amazing like how intrinsic the desire to learn is in kids. Like, I am so not a mom who is concerned with like how my kids are testing or any of that stuff. I could not care less because I see them every day and I'm with them every day. And I see how they're developing and growing and learning. And I'm like, I try to encourage each one in, you know, whatever they're interested in at the time. And, you know, they are doing well in writing and like they seem to be on pace. I don't actually know because I don't test them. But I don't know. I think if you're like spending the time with your child and like really just know them, know their heart, know where they're at, know their interests, like that's going to develop in different ways. And it's really cool when you're like with them enough to really like see that. And then I think that kind of takes away the concern of like, are they on track? Are they on track? When it's like, you know how they're doing. I don't know. It's just like.
Yeah, and even if they're not on track, like maybe that's another reason why they should be homeschooled. Like I have a friend, her daughter is very, very smart. Like she could like memorize a book in a couple of sittings, and then she wasn't doing really well in school, and her teachers were like kind of suggesting she go on medication or, you know, like she's just not doing good. And my friend was like, But like what I see in my daughter is very gifted and she's very smart. And so lo and behold, she's going to homeschool her. So that's going to be really interesting to see how her daughter thrives or doesn't. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to throw out some recommendations because whenever I listen to podcasts, I love hearing recommendations.
Yeah.
So I really love the Unhurried Homeschool. I've read that book like 3 times now and I keep reading it because I just want to keep on top of things.
Yeah.
And it's a very simple, very painless read, very short. You can read it in like a few days, a few sittings. And then the other influencer I like in homeschooling world is the Charlotte Mason. So I forget the book I liked. I can send it to you and you can put it in the show notes though. But those were like the 2 biggest influences I had. So if you are interested in homeschooling, like it doesn't have to be like this super crazy endeavor where it's just overwhelming and it consumes your entire life, because we do a lot outside of schooling. And you know, my children are often like baking in the kitchen or creating something, and
I've heard you say it's not necessarily about taking the public school system into your home.
Right.
It's kind of creating your own system.
Right. And too, I think the timing for children too is like a lot of pressure is being put on like a 4 or 5-year-old to hurry up and learn to read. I started my eldest son learning to read at 4, and it was such a painful uphill battle. I took my 7-year-old, who he's 7 now, and I started him at 6, and it was so enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like he learned really easily. I did do a little app with him. We don't do much tech, but I did this one app where he could learn A is ah, pretty quickly. And he had a lot of fun with that, especially because he doesn't get to go on screens ever. But he learned to read so painlessly. And so I think sometimes like the pressures are coming on too young.
Yeah.
And he didn't really need to learn to read. Like I would say we spent a lot of time reading though. So we would read aloud. That was another influence I had, was the Read-Aloud family. So we read aloud a lot. Like we've gone through it. There is a book called The Read-Aloud Family. I never did read it. I just heard a podcast on the women who wrote it. Okay. And I was like, okay, we're going to be a read-aloud family. So we read aloud a lot. Like we've read a ton of chapter book series, and it's interesting seeing my 4-year-old, like the proof is kind of in the pudding. My 4-year-old, his vocabulary is incredible. Like sometimes I hear him talking, I'm like, how are you talking like that? Like no one in our family talks that well. Like I'm kind of come from like a more slang background. I'm like a surfer and don't have like the best vocabulary or way of speaking, even though I am a motivational speaker. But just seeing my 4-year-old, I'm like, he has been in the room with the big boys reading all their books. They're reading aloud since he was a baby. And so it's just been like so cool to see. And then that family, my 7-year-old's like, he's almost over the top. I'm like, dude, we're not reading right now. Like we gotta go do other things. We gotta do house chores and like take care of life. He's like, no, let's read. He's like that like nagging.
It's so sweet.
Kind of almost.
Kids like who see their parents read too, that has a huge influence on them.
Yeah, and like, I mean, Adam and I read, but not that much. I mean, I wish I had more time to read, but it's not like I have that much time to read. We basically only read a devotional, and then I'll read like maybe a half chapter at bedtime.
Yeah.
But otherwise, all our readings with them. One of my favorite authors for young children between maybe 7 and 14 is S.D. Smith. He's like a C.S. Lewis.
What?
The Green Ember series.
I don't think I've.
Oh my gosh, you need to get these book series.
Okay.
Like it's like this battle of like bunnies and wolves and birds of prey, but it reminds me of like a Lord of the Rings / Chronicles of Narnia. Yeah. Like on that level, the intellectual like kind of battles that the characters have. It's very much the fight of good and evil in the character stories. Maybe a little too much violence for some parents, but they're really...
Violence with a purpose.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of real life
if
you're really breaking it down. And the fact that it's bunnies, it maybe feels a little less violent. Granted, my 4-year-old kind of, he's usually playing in the yard with swords and stuff. And sometimes I'm like, oh, we might have read that too soon to him.
Boy stuff. Okay, we're gonna have so many good things to put in the show notes. I'm so excited. How do you guys navigate screens in your home?
So I'll be honest, I wish I did a better job as a mom because a lot of my work is on my phone, and we live in a smaller house now, so my children see me getting work done. But for a while, I did have all my social media on a different device, and I loved that, but my device broke, so I gotta recover all that, and it's been a while. And I even bought a new phone, and then the new phone wasn't working good. But I will say, if you're a mom that struggles with like social media addiction, if you can get your social media off your main device, game changer.
Really good advice.
Like game changer for me. Like instead of being in the grocery store and randomly scrolling just cause, like you can just live normal life and not scroll all the time.
Yep.
So
Setting a boundary
I think
around it.
as a wife or a mom, like if you can hone in on your own issues first and foremost, but I knew early on I wasn't going to have our children on devices. And, you know, it was interesting. I'm like seeing stuff on social media and like people are blaming the tech industry. But in my opinion, it's actually comes back to the parents. You know, we need to take ownership of how screens are being used in our household. You know, you're literally the gatekeeper to your household. So if you're blaming the tech industry for your child having issues because they're on devices, like I just think that's a bit backwards. But yeah, my children don't go on devices. The only time they're on devices is if we're on an airplane, and otherwise
That's
we'll
the only
have like
time we do it too.
a movie night
Airplane
here
or like
and
a long
there.
road trip.
Yeah, we'll have a
allow
movie
it.
night.
But
Occasionally,
movies are so different because like you're all watching the same thing and you're experiencing it together.
yeah.
Versus the device, it really puts a wall up. It puts you in your own world.
Right. And we do like audiobooks is one of our favorite things. So sometimes when the boys are doing chores, we'll throw on an audiobook, and especially my 7-year-old really likes that because he's usually resistant to doing chores. And then, yeah, I think I'll probably hold off as long as possible, and then we'll walk through it with them and, you know, try to equip them to like say no to pornography and, you know, not be an addict to the device, so to say, and like not allow the device to rule their life. And yeah, I've been having some really insightful conversations around this, and just the dopamine effect and addiction levels that children are starting so young now is really alarming. And I think we're in a time of error as a society, and we're going to look back on this time and think like, wow, we really jacked things up. So I think just like really diving deep on this topic as parents is super important. And just because all their friends are doing it doesn't mean you have to do it too. Like, to me, that's the stupidest way to parent, is just do what everyone else is doing. Like, not necessarily. Like, you literally need to be the gatekeeper of your own home and choose your family's life.
Same. And I want my kids to grow up being okay with not doing what everyone else is doing.
Right.
And I think that we can do that now with like foods, with technology. Just get them really comfortable with like living life in a different way that goes against the grain.
Right. And it's like a lot of my life too, like, you know, we are using technology a lot. And so I talk about this with my eldest son in particular. I'm like, this is what we're up to. And I try to explain to him so he knows that, you know, a lot of what we're doing has a purpose, and we're creating, not consuming, with most of what we do. And so I think like that was a quote I heard somewhere along the way, is like, create more than you're consuming. And so trying to create a household that is doing just that, like we're creating more than we're consuming, unless it's book reading, because we do consume quite a bit when we're reading.
I heard your husband casually mention in a podcast episode that you guys try to be intentional about calling your children and not kids. And I have like a guess on kind of the intentionality behind that, but can you explain why you've made that decision?
I mean, for me, it's actually not that deep. It's more of just like kids is a nickname for, it's like baby goats.
Oh, no way.
Like a kid is a baby goat, and I don't know how it made it so way over to humans, but like, I don't know, we just call our children. Like,
that's so funny. I was
like,
thinking that
it's just,
it was
purely
more
a
like
pet peeve.
reverence or something for them. Like,
It's literally just like our own little like pet peeve thing.
I tried to mostly say children in this episode, but I feel like kids slipped out a few times.
You're fine. I'm not offended at all. It's literally just our little like pet peeve thing. I don't know why we just call them children, not kids. Even though like it's fine.
I try, like whenever I say children, I feel like it sounds so formal to me. Like
it's weird how our language
Yeah.
truly is changing, and you look at language as a whole, and you know, I'm certainly not a language expert, but now that I'm homeschooling my children, I'm like, oh my gosh, my example of language is not great. There's like such better language out there.
mean?
Like the way I communicate is very simplistic, and our society at large, like the way our language is slowly getting dumber and dumber. Like, I don't know. I
think the way you communicate is really unique and special because you can't not be authentic. Like, you're such an authentic person that you say what you mean, and you're not like thinking like, how is this going to be perceived? Like, you can just tell that you're just yourself, and that's like super rare and awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I really think honesty is a lost art in our society, and I think, you know, a lot of how I live my life, it comes from the Bible. Like, you know, for example, thou shalt not lie. Like, that is a commandment because when you lie, it destroys your life, and it destroys that connection with the people around you. And so trying to live as honest as I can, I think is really important. Granted, I know there's some times when you kind of like, let's just like not go there when you have some confrontation with someone, because like there's likely just no working through it. But I don't know.
Well, I think there can be wisdom in that too sometimes.
Sometimes. And granted, like my sister-in-law sent me a Bible verse recently, and it was like, with your brother, like work out, you know, try to work through your conflict to the best that you can, you know. I forget the exact verse. I don't have that memorized. But yeah, I mean, like, I think lying can come in different forms, and sometimes it's something that kind of creeps into our life over time, and we slowly start to just accept it as truth, even though it's not necessarily truth. And a lot of society wants to live by like my truth versus like having some basic truths. For example, let's get really nitty gritty here with some intense stuff like pedophilia, for example. Much of society is starting to accept it as normal, and it's actually really not good, and that should not be accepted as good and true and right. You know, I recently saw a post on Instagram that says 200,000 people saw this, and it was an older fellow engaging with a younger girl. She was 16, he was 26. Nobody mentioned pedophilia in the entire comment section. And I'm like, how is society at large normalizing something that is not okay? And it's truly because we're losing truth and honesty, and nobody wants to step on anyone's toes now because we just don't want to have conflict. We're conflict adverse. And so, yeah, I've just found in my life a lot of the bigger pains come from not being honest and not being truthful and not being willing to work through, you know, some of the challenges. And I'm realizing that's not working. And yeah, I mean, I am more honest, I would say, but like, I am also choosing to be more honest because I don't see the opposite approach working.
Yeah, and it's helping others when you can be honest and vulnerable. But going back to what you said about like when everyone can define what their own truth is, that can lead to such a dangerous place in society. Like, rather than acknowledging that there is absolute truth. And for me personally, I don't want to have to figure that out in every situation. I would rather like trust in what God says is true. Yeah, there's just kind of no limit, no end to what is right or wrong, no clear answer to that when everyone is defining that for themselves.
Right. And that's the thing too, is like, I think a lot of society at large too, you know, I had a conversation recently where we were talking about the lack of moral foundation, and having a moral foundation as a society at large kind of keeps everyone in check. It like curbs where we're going, but we're losing so much of that we can't necessarily pinpoint why are things so messed up? Like, why is there so many issues in this, and this? And it's because of this like watering down of moral truth and that foundation that we so desperately need. And yet I believe that even with that in my life, I still need God to like hold me tight and carry me through like my mistakes along the way, or the mistakes of my neighbor, so to say. And so, yeah, we have to fight for truth. We have to fight for what is good and right. And maybe that's simply by the way you raise your children. You don't have to be like out there on the streets, like trying to fight it all, so to say. But yeah, maybe it's just the way you do it in your own home. And you know, I don't think it's healthy to also like be so politically engaged all the time, and like seeing all the issues of the world constantly is like, no one can really handle that healthily. Yeah. And so that's why like, let's come back to like, let's not spend so much time on social media. Like that in itself could help our health so much. Or maybe it looks like training your algorithm to send you health content and like comedy stuff that makes you laugh. And being like just in tune with what you're consuming, so that you can like not be so stressed out all the time. And
I love comedy. I feel like the older I get, the more I just want to laugh.
And
like my husband and I have gone to a few comedy shows lately. We saw Jerry Seinfeld.
Was that good?
It was so good.
Wow.
Like, and he's getting up there in age now, but he was amazing. And then we saw John Christ a couple months ago too. It was so fun. Oh, you would love him.
Wow. I need to find these people.
I'll send you some of his stuff. Okay. Well, I want to close out with a fun rapid fire.
Okay. But wait, before we get out too, can I just say Primarily Pure's deodorant is so amazing. Like,
thank you.
I feel like the deodorant industry blew it so hard at the start of natural deodorant. Like when we go back like 15 years to Tom's deodorant.
Oh, it's the worst.
That did not work at all.
I mean, that's literally why I was like, okay, I need to figure this out on my own, because Tom's didn't do it right.
Right.
And it's possible. I know it's possible because I'd been using just baking soda and coconut oil, and that worked.
Yeah.
But I wanted my husband to do it, and he didn't want to like rub stuff on his armpits.
Right.
So I was like, I've got to figure out how to do it. And I like spent so much time in my kitchen creating like almost 200 different versions. Well, like I was just kind of on this passion project.
Yeah.
You know, of course I wanted him to use it, but I needed to figure this out. And finally had a version that I was happy with.
Yeah, but anyway, I've been using y'all's deodorant for like 10 years now, or I don't know how long.
Oh, really?
Have you guys been around that long?
Yeah.
I feel like from very early on. Like I just always loved your deodorant.
In February.
I even like got a couple other deodorants along the way, like in a pinch, you know, you run out of deodorant and you go to the grocery store to see what you can find. And they didn't work as good. Wow. So I always feel so bad though. I'm like, how many people tried Tom's deodorant and then never went back to natural deodorant because they're like, oh, there's no way. And so now there's a way, people. There's good deodorant out there. Primarily Pure deodorant. It's amazing.
Well, thank you so much. I love that. I appreciate you saying that. Okay. What is the most strange thing that you have ever done in the name of health?
Ooh, I mean, I think for most of society, like the enema scene is a little too much. So
do you do coffee enemas?
Yeah, we've been doing like a special type of coffee enema. My husband and I even got my husband into it. How cool is that?
That's like, rare.
He's
deep on the health journey if he's doing coffee enemas.
I think he a lot of mornings he'll wake up not feeling amazing, and I think he has some like adrenal fatigue stuff going on. And so we're trying to problem solve, you know.
Have you done a coffee colonic ever?
We just did a big old parasite cleanse, which was super fun. And so we were doing we did 2 enemas a day. We were doing one coffee and one ozone.
Oh, ozonated water?
Felt amazing. Like I felt so good. Like
that is so funny. I was showing my daughter these questions. I was like, here's a rapid fire. So I was like, what do you think she's gonna say for the strangest health thing?
Yeah.
She said coffee enemas and ozone. I was like, I don't think she's doing ozone. I don't know if she's that
it's funny.
deep into
Someone
her
just
health.
gave us an ozone machine. I'm like, okay, fine, we got to use it. Like, stoked we got this because they were moving
That's
off
wild.
island and they got rid of
ozone
it.
generator too, but I feel like that's super rare to hear people that are
So
doing
we
that.
got that. I actually feel like I need to be using it more, like drinking ozone water or something. But so we've been doing that, and the parasite cleanse was really interesting. I've been wanting to do one for like 5+ years, but I kept having babies, so I didn't do it until finally I caved and I was like, I have to do it now.
Which one did you do?
I did, what was it? The Sanctuary Wellness.
Okay.
It was, for example, it was all plant-based, which I'm not big on that, but I just cheated a little and did the mother load of bone broth throughout it because I wanted to make sure I was still getting protein. And a lot came out. I'm not really good at picking out the parasites, but I had something called what was it? A roundworm it was like I forget the name. It's like a roundworm, but it's not an actual parasite, but it's like a toxic buildup and they become these like hard, long worm, toxic. It's filled with all different types of toxins and they're just sitting in your gut. I think I lost like 5 pounds of gut matter. In that cleanse.
That feels good.
So now I think I'm going to do it like at least once a year.
Do you have a guilty pleasure?
I would say like Newman's Oreos.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
have you ever
that's
tried
like
the Simple Mills ones?
Oh, are they? I don't know if we have. Maybe we have.
They're like gluten-free, coconut sugar.
Are they like seed oil free? Because the Newmans have seed oils in them and we'll still eat them every now and then.
I can't remember. Some Simple Mills stuff does have sunflower oil, but I feel like these ones might not. I'm not positive though.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my guilty pleasures are like ice cream before bedtime, but I don't even think it's that bad actually. Because when I went through that season of adrenal fatigue and kind of like running on cortisol, one of the things that helped me was eating a bedtime snack. So I started having like cheese and fruit or milk and honey or ice cream and like some sort of protein. And that helped me start sleeping better and not like waking up wide awake at 2 or 3 in the morning. And so, that's something that's not celebrated, like eating right before bedtime, but that literally helps change my reality from going from like waking up wide awake at 2 or 3 in the morning for an hour or two to like being able to sleep through that window. I might like wrestle a little, but yeah, that's why I said like sometimes you have to do what isn't actually popular. So eating right before you go to bed is super unpopular, but that helped me in that season where I was like super fried and my adrenals were thrashed. And that came from the pro-metabolic community and some of the advice I'd received. I did like a live blood analysis and a hair mineral test and just kind of looked in on things. And there was just a lot going on in my gut too, but lo and behold, fast forward, we're slowly cleaning things up.
What is one trending health craze that you're not buying into?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big fan of intermittent fasting, but I liked your statement of like a little bit here and there once in a while. But there's a lot, like the no salt, the no fat, the vegan.
Is no fat still trending?
I think some people maybe still fall for it, but I think the vegan, for sure not into the vegan movement, plant-based movement.
Yeah, agreed. What's your morning drink of choice?
Ooh, well, this morning I had lemongrass tea with a little lemon and honey.
There's a lot of lemongrass here on the island, right?
Yeah, you can find it. We grow it in our yard and we make it all the time. It's one of my favorite. If I could bring this to market, I feel like everyone would fall in love with it.
Yeah,
but
amazing.
I just like a good espresso with coconut milk. Adam and I like to make like a coconut milk cappuccino. I'd say orange juice is my favorite breakfast drink though.
Okay.
But coffee is like a given.
Yeah.
We're having that regardless.
Yeah.
But if I can have fresh squeezed orange juice.
I love fresh squeezed orange juice. It's the best. What's your go-to healthy snack?
Ooh, I really love Jell-O. Like, as a mom, I have Jell-O in my fridge all the time.
Like normal Jell-O? Or do you?
No, I make like Jell-O from gelatin.
Okay. I was going to say that doesn't fit everything that you're talking about.
Like, I'll get mango juice, fresh lime juice, and a pinch of sea salt or an electrolyte. And then I mix that with the gelatin and make Jell-O in our fridge. So I have that all the time. So
smart. So you pour it into a bowl or something?
In a pan, and then you slice it up. It's literally like the old-fashioned Jell-O, but like a better version. No red dye 5.
With gummies, and we'll like pour it into silicone molds and then have like gelatin-based gummies. But I've never thought of just making that as like
I just have a pan of it, and it's just like, I think as a mom, if you're the type to forget to eat, then having something like Jell-O is such a good food, and it's not that expensive. Like, you just have juice and gelatin.
It's actually really easy to make
it's super easy. So I almost always have that in my fridge at all times, and then the children can grab it too, and it's a good solid snack as far as it has protein and carbs.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my go-to snack.
What's your favorite way to reset in 10 minutes or less?
Ooh, I think going for a walk, jumping in the sauna, or laying down and listening to the Bible with my vagus nerve stimulator.
Love it. Bethany, thank you so much for being here.
Yes.
Last thing, I know you have a big heart for encouraging young girls. If there are any young girls that are maybe listening today alongside their moms, what advice or encouragement would you leave them with?
Oh my goodness. I would just say always be teachable. Like, I think if you're willing to learn and grow and push yourself, and also like listen to what your mom says, because it's likely she has some years of wisdom under her belt. I still go to my mom to this day. And so just knowing that my mom is there to serve and protect me and not like, make my life miserable is so important. And just being teachable continually, and know that you don't need easy, you just need possible.
So good. Thank you so much.
Yes, my pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to follow Grounded Wellness on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or subscribe to our YouTube channel.